banned from his server earlier today.
So yeah, what's the math? Doesn't he have them do like little mock arguments if someone tries to pretend to be vegan or something?
First of all, Ray, post that in main because I'm sure we're all interested in that, and I'm also interested.
Oh God, yes, absolutely. I'll happily tell you. It's hysterical. Narrowly.
Helena, I haven't gotten a DM with that bikini pic yet. Is it coming or what?
Yeah.
Getting banned in there is the equivalent of changing the thermostat 1 degree in your parents' house and them finding out.
You get this.
Danny, just take your shirt off.
Danny said not to post in main Johnny Be Bad because it might get him banned. So
What
can we delete
the
that?
absolute fuck is this shit?
Johnny, can you delete that or can a mod delete it?
Monumental debate experience. Monumental fallacy spotting. Monumental ability to keep debates centered. Monumental ability to push for concession. Monumental
think those are pretty good, actually.
That's he just put some. It's nothing.
What do you mean it's nothing? It's a parameter.
Yeah, it's just basically. I feel like they have a monumental ability to do those things. Just like there's no criteria. I mean, the criteria is pretty neat.
This is really good ice cream rather than it's okay.
Yeah, it's just.
Which of these parameters do you feel you fulfill tasteless?
I like how they've given it to themselves. Yet JHC was explaining to them.
What about you? I mean,
the other day of.
I'm sorry, Ray. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, you should.
So
that. No, I'm done.
What
That's right.
criterion will you use in order for you to determine that? I mean, you're criticizing them, right? But you don't even have a criterion. What the fuck?
Look, the thing. The question is how. What are they defined as? We love to talk about definitions.
Tasteless. Do you not get bored of playing contrarian for everything?
So let me ask you something. In this case, let's go, and analyze this. Oh shit!
No, let's not.
No, let's mute Tasteless and then never fucking talk to him again.
Dude, let's just not count you in this discussion at all.
Why, Michael? Come on,
Can we get Iron back to be a contrarian?
It seems like you have a weak position that you don't want to discuss because
I think that you are always a terminological dispute, and I think you're too stupid to follow. So
that's okay. That's a subjective opinion. I respect that. I respect that shit.
All right, then sit down, shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
all
sure.
Right, all right, thanks, bud.
Pussy.
No. Don't be mad.
So, Michael, why do you think you have to have language to be an agent?
Yo, is Helena still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, fuck.
All right, let's go time.
Mute.
Okay, let's hear it. Tell me.
Yeah, I just want to say that if anybody interrupts me and Helena, I'm gonna force me and Helena to go
suck your own dick, Budge. Keep going.
Without you guys interrupting.
Yeah, suck your own dick.
Because a lot of these, like for example, whenever we get heavyweights in here, like GHC and shit, and I start talking to them, all of you guys want to butt in and take little jabs here and there. That's just not gonna happen, okay?
Suck your own dick, bud.
So yeah, so I'm a little bit high, but don't worry, Helena. This conversation is gonna go really smoothly.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead. You can start just by asking a question, and we'll go from there.
Okay. What is the definition you're working with for calling somebody religious as an adjective?
Like, did Tom post that definition? Did you read it?
I did, but it was a definition for religion. And I was curious how you adapt that to be an adjective, to describe a person.
That's the definition of religious. I didn't see what he posted. It might have been the wrong one. But
Are you
so
posting?
you think that?
'Cause
So
I don't
you think
see it
that
yet.
you?
Google it.
Well, let me look. I'm on my tab. Let me see. Let me
Okay.
pull up my screen.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it out?
Let me see
I'm
here.
looking
Yeah.
for religious, not religion.
Read it out, Ray.
Well, I'm not sure what I meant to be reading
Yeah,
now.
what Tom posted says religion.
Right.
But I don't see what your issue is. You're saying that you're taking issue. You don't take issue with the definition of religion, but you take issue with me equivocating religious with religion.
No, I didn't think you're equivocating, and I'm not taking any issue yet. I'm trying to figure out how do you adapt, how would you personally adapt that definition of religion in the adjective form, right? So that it would apply to a person. In other words, how do you use the word religious?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I posted
Yeah. So
the wiki. In
there's
chat.
two different.
Okay.
So Helena, there's two approaches that we have to conceptualize to get the big picture, so to speak. And one of them is dogmatic. We have to define dogmatic. And what does it mean for somebody to argue dogmatically or hold views dogmatically, right? So if you guys want, you can just post a definition of dogmatic. I mean, that'd be great. But the way I approach it, to put it to as simple as possible, I think that every single human being who rationalizes their worldview, who has a worldview, who acts out a worldview, so to speak, every single person like this has fundamental axiomatic assertions about the world, right? Like, for example, atheists have their properly basic beliefs, which are pretty much presuppositions or unjustified beliefs. So with that being said, Helena, whenever we talk about what it means to be dogmatic, wouldn't you agree with me, Helena, that if you have presuppositions about the natural world and you develop worldviews in debate, then you are dogmatically holding on to things like presuppositions or properly basic beliefs?
I don't think so.
Right. You want to explain just a little bit why
Yeah, so
that's not the case for you?
I don't think that, like, take a foundationalist who says that, you know, the end of their epistemology or whatever, the grounding is their PBBs. And they have ways to justify their PBBs, right? There's two ways. What do they
Yeah, but
say?
that's ultimately no. I
Self-evident
disagree with you. That's
or- well, I
whenever you
haven't
say they
really.
can justify it. That's still circular reasoning they're invoking.
Well, yeah, well, that's fine, but I'm just gonna let me just go on.
Yeah, so it's begging the question. It's
That's fine. That's all fine.
equivalent
I don't
to
really
like a
disagree with you. I don't
properly
disagree with that.
basic or a presupposition.
Right. So they're gonna say, but let me just finish the rest of the thought. So you got a foundationalist. They're gonna say that they have these properly basic beliefs and that they're justified either by self-evident or experience, right? So whether or not they're dogmatic, to me, is going to be about whether they won't listen to someone else explaining a different point of view, and they won't take that other point of view into consideration because they've already kind of decided. So they can't take in new information about that.
So you're saying,
epistemic
but
framework.
I feel like you're just explaining what it means to be a bigot or something like that.
Well, okay, I don't think so. I don't know, but I mean,
Well,
to me,
what would you
dogmatic.
say a bigot is? What would you say the difference between what you just said and what a bigot is?
I think of a bigot as being specifically about how a person considers other people, whereas dogmatic is about
Would you
whether
agree that
or not a
being a
person
bigot?
holds to their beliefs.
Would you agree with this definition, that it's intolerant of other views? That's like the main definition everyone uses of bigot. Is that a definition you would agree with?
Intolerant of other views? I mean, that would be
Yeah,
okay.
like
I
you're
suppose.
a bigot.
I thought a bigot was
Yeah,
more
so that's
about
basically what you
people.
just explained whenever you said dogmatic. You were like, well, it depends on whether or not they were tolerant of other views. That's the criteria in which I would consider them dogmatic.
Yeah,
That's
not
what I
just
think you're saying.
tolerant, but able to consider. So, like, I don't think people become dogmatic unless they're so convinced by their own view that they're not able to hear new views or new arguments. They can't even hear
Well,
it.
that's what we're all doing, Helena. That's what my claim is. Like, for example, we have thought processes, which we call sciences, right? And we
Yeah.
think that the sciences get us away from our biases and bigotry and towards objectivity. So in other words, we think we know something about the world because of science. But we do know for a fact that one of the properly basic beliefs is something like assuming the universe is intelligible. Now, you can't tell me that these scientists aren't holding on to that view dogmatically as they're doing their science and as they're in their science debates. I mean, maybe you can. I mean, do you disagree there? Oh, fuck.
Did you wreck Helena?
Oh, fuck. I think my connection's just fucking up. I can't hear it. I can hear you, Bacon. I can't hear Helena anymore.
Helena, can you talk?
Helena, are you all right?
Helena, have you had a senior moment or what?
Can nobody else hear me? Testing, testing,
Yeah, we're good
testing.
now.
We can hear you now.
Could you not hear me at all that whole time?
Don't worry.
Yeah,
Are you just playing around?
No, we're not playing around. You went dead for everyone.
Oh, for crying out loud.
I
was saying.
That's the worst timing too. Jesus, like the worst timing. Made it seem like I had a got you, but it didn't.
Yeah. So I was going to say it may not matter that I'm not willing to say that a scientist holds their assumptions when they're doing a particular experiment dogmatically, right? So maybe you can keep going. So in other words, the fact that I'm a little bit reluctant to agree to the word dogmatic may not matter. Let's hear the rest of the point.
Well, hold on. I think that's what the point I just made is crucial. It's so important. Like we are like this is a very important conversation we're having, Helena, right? Like in other words, more people need to understand that whenever we do science, science is something like this, right? At the foundation of all sciences is dogmatic, axiomatic assertions about the natural world. Right? That's why I hold to methodological naturalism. And basically, I hold that as an epistemology because it just says that we don't take supernatural into consideration whenever we do science. Well, that's because we have axiomatic fundamental assertions about the universe, like the universe is intelligible and we can't really know anything outside of our conscious experience, so it's probably worthless. It's probably a worthless endeavor. But I don't think that's the case. Like I said, we have science and scientific instruments, but I'm kind of getting off topic.
Yeah. So you're saying that methodological naturalism is holding the assumptions involved in that theory dogmatic.
Don't worry about methodological naturalism. That's irrelevant. Just the point I'm making, the point I would like for you to acknowledge, is that whenever we do science, at the foundation of science are value claims, right? Like, for example, the universe is intelligible, the universe is worth understanding, you value knowledge, so you do experiments. Like, all of these things are dogmatic. Like, I'm doing a terrible job at explaining it, so I'm going to try again here, really simple, a little bit simpler. So, basically, I would just like you to acknowledge that you can't do science, right? You can't be committed to the scientific method unless you're committed to the presupposition of the universe is intelligible. Do you agree with that?
I think that I would agree with this, and maybe it won't matter that it's not exactly the same as what you want to say. When you do science, you make assumptions. And one of those assumptions is that nature is uniform during the time period, during a relatively long period of time. In other words, since we've been alive or whatever, there's been enough uniformity in nature that we can make that assumption for the sake of this experiment. Now, I wouldn't say that that's
fine.
Dogmatism.
Well, that's fine. Well, we don't get to dogmatism yet. Like, you're not dogmatic in virtue of holding the view in of itself, Helena. It's dogmatic whenever you act out a certain logos or archetype Or in other words, whenever you live out your life and you act out a certain worldview, whenever you're acting these things out, like all the scientists are, all the philosophers are, they're constantly debating back and forth over who's right or who's wrong. This is dogmatism, right? This is a clear-cut example of dogmatism. Excuse me. Yeah, this is just a clear-cut example of dogmatism, in my opinion. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, how is this not dogmatism? We've looked up the definition.
Well,
I agree
okay.
with your interpretation of dogmatism as well. I just think that you misinterpreted how we get to the claim that it's dogmatic. Like, for example, I'm not dogmatic in virtue of holding a presupposition, or I'm not dogmatic in virtue of having properly basic beliefs. That doesn't make me dogmatic. What makes me dogmatic is if I act out like for example, if you red pill me right now and I change my view entirely right now, I wouldn't necessarily say you're dogmatic towards that view until you start acting it out, so to speak, until you start incorporating this information into your logos, right? So another thing to point out, Helena, is that I believe that I like pragmatic truth. I think that I work with two different definitions of truth: scientific objective truth and meta truth, or metaphorical truth. And so I think that I place validity in what you act out. So what you act out is true versus what you say is true. So I feel like the process of acting out what you think is true is dogmatic. And we can I mean this, I don't want this discussion to go on for like 3 hours because we'd have to go into truth and all, but I'm just trying to stick to dogmatism here and what we mean by dogmatic.
All right, so let me go back and talk about the hypothetical scientist, right? Because it seems like what you want to do is argue that in one way or another, everybody's dogmatic. Is that where you want to go eventually?
Well, I feel like I'm trying to define what I mean, right? Like,
right. So,
like for example, we don't have free will. I start from the interpretation that we don't have free will. I'm basically a soft determinist, or maybe like a compatibilist. Not really. I just don't agree with the semantics, but it's fine. I'm basically a compatibilist for simplicity's sake here.
Okay.
And I don't believe in free will. So I place a lot of validity in things like the archetypes, or the universal nature, or a transcendent knowledge, and things like that. I feel connected to that. I feel connected to the animus, or the process that gives rise to change. Like for example, astrophysicists are some of the most humble people you know, because they feel so connected to the universe in the sense that they know where we came from, right? They feel like they are a part of the universe and shit. Carl Sagan said that cookie cutter quote: "We are the universe's attempt to understand itself."
Yeah.
Now I find these ideas fascinating because I don't believe we have free will, and I believe that morality and ethics, I believe that the logos, the archetypes, all of these things are naturally occurring phenomenons, and which I can connect to in such a way. So whenever it comes to what is true, what does it mean for things to be true, I think that there is a truth nested within Darwinian theory. It's something like, what it is true, if whenever you act as if it is true, you are better off on the other end, so to speak. Like, for example, it helps you survive. So maybe what is true is that which helps you survive, right? And the issue that I'm having is that this is two different definitions of truth. And I absolutely, I grant massive amounts of sympathy to people like who only subscribe to one form of truth, which would be the scientific method, or something like objectivity or objective truth, right? That's fine. But my issue, Helena, is that I mean, maybe you can disagree with me here, and if you disagree, but
what was that?
I said, "Hey, JonJon, how you doing, man?"
But
I'm doing good.
He's explaining something. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, you're muted.
Yeah, but Helena, something that I would like for you to tell me if you disagree with, because this is very important in my worldview. I think this is something intriguing. I think that through a majority of our evolutionary chain, we developed language millions of years ago, probably. I mean, I'm not sure exactly the number, but we've had language for a long time. And once we developed a language, everything changed, because we then were able to like this concept of a transcendent knowledge was able to form, right? Because we were able to pass down information from generation to generation. And this because of things like this, we are able to discover things like archetypes. Like no one person could ever discover an archetype. An archetype is something that amounts to a transcendental knowledge of human pattern, of human behavior. But
Okay.
so I'm rambling way too badly.
That's
But
all right. That's
to
all
make
right. Let me
a quick point, Helena. I just want to. No, I had to slow down because I rambled way too long. It should have took me like 2
That's
seconds
okay.
to say it.
I
But
keep track of it.
my
Just,
issue with people is that through a majority of our evolutionary chain, we dealt with a different form of truth. We thought differently. We were storytellers, and within like the last millennia, right, we've transitioned into the scientific, objective way of thinking. So, for example, whenever people interpret the religious text, Helena, it's just clear as day. It's not a science book. It's just clear as day. You shouldn't interpret these things as a scientific in a scientific, objective way. But that doesn't stop the entire atheist community from doing just that. So I think that's a huge issue. People thought differently back then. We were storytellers. Like people, like for example, myths, like ancient myths. They call it mythology or whatever. People need to understand that there's a lot of validity to be placed in things like mythology. Mythology is something like ancient psyche of people. It's who we are. Like these ancient, like I have this quote that I came up with. Is something like, gods and deities are merely psychological concepts being conveyed into reality. So it's something like, so whenever we talk about the logos, the archetypes, mythology, this is the transcendent knowledge. And I'm saying that what you act out is true. Wow, we have really strayed away from dogmatism.
That's all right.
I'm just gonna let you ask some clarifying questions here, because I was just about to get right back into dogmatism. But I think that information was useful.
All right, so listen. So let me just recap what I think you've said so far, and then we'll try to get it back to dogmatism, okay? So first you talked about how it seems to you like everybody has some sort of axiomatic principle that they hold to in a dogmatic way. Then you talked about science and methodological naturalism that's required in order to do a scientific experiment. Then you talked about pragmatic
Let's just
truth.
forget about yeah, we could just forget about methodological naturalism for now.
All right. And then you talked about pragmatic truth and metaphorical truth. Then
yeah,
you
those would be
said
relevant.
actions are true or false, but I don't think you really meant that. I think what you meant was when a person acts out true or false propositions, then you can see what it is that they believe. And
I think I said what a person acts out is true. What you act out is true over or versus what you say is true.
Okay.
Something like that.
Then you talked about let me think, transcendental knowledge or transcendent knowledge, right? Which you pointed out it was when humans developed language that we were able to achieve transcendent knowledge because of a Jungian idea that we're a collection of all of our thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then you made a claim with respect to metaphorical truth, I guess, that you can see it as nested in Darwinism in a way.
Yeah, that's to be honest with you, that's a whole nother debate. Like we should only get into that if necessary, because that will be an hour long. Well, at least be 30 minutes.
Okay, and then the last claim you made that I think I would really disagree with is that atheists.
Oh wow, you disagree with some of these? Oh,
I disagree with your last one for sure, which is that atheists act like they don't realize that the Bible or whatever book in question was meant to be stories,
right, so
even at the time
we'll
it was
just hash
written.
that one out. Okay, we'll hash the last one out first.
Okay, so I would disagree. I think that most of the time atheists often feel like they're banging their head against the wall because the religious person in front of them is the one who doesn't realize that those stories were never intended to be taken literally.
Okay, that's fair. I agree, but don't you think that a lot of atheists actually do interpret it literally out of convenience in terms of wrecking religion, air quotes?
Yes, I think that atheists definitely take advantage of this literal interpretation. And in fact, what they do that bugs me is you get these moderate Christians who are trying hard to like stay moral and somehow stay Christian. And they'll do it by manipulating and saying, well, this particular story is a metaphor and this is just a parable and things like that. And the atheists will try to force them to take on a fundamental view of the Bible just to try to score points. I've seen that, yeah. But
yeah, that's
what
I was talking about. But people get too caught up in this. Like these cookie cutter new atheists don't know what the fuck they're thinking. So they literally, whenever we talk about religion or the Bible or anything like that, instead of going down this universal nature archetype route, the only thing they have to offer are cookie cutter new atheist lines like sexism, cannibalism, slavery. They only want to talk about the most negative things and the most negative interpretations of text, which is fair, but they're doing it out of convenience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but you agree, we both agree on that, right? You agree that it's not really true that atheists don't know that these old books were never supposed to be taken literally, that they were always stories, just like all the other books during that time period. Right? Most atheists know that.
Fair, but I think I agree with you there. But my issue is that I think the point I was trying to make is a much deeper point. It's a much more important point, and it's that it's something like humans thought differently back then, thousands and thousands of years ago. We were storytellers. So whenever it comes to these archetypes, whenever it comes to these myths or mythology, whenever it comes to the religious texts, for example, like demons and gods, and all of these things can be extremely meaningful underneath an evolutionary psychological context rather than just to give you a quick example, like whenever I was talking about metaphorical truth, it's something like this. Like, for example, let's say there's a scripture verse trying to get at the concept of greed and how being too greedy could really mess you up in life, right? So this would be something like an archetype trying to be expressed or something, right? Some kind of universal nature trying to come to life.
But there is such a scripture verse, JonJon.
John. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to be able to quote it exactly. So for this, it's just more simple here. So let's say, so I think just to go off the scripture verse, I'm not going to remember half of it, but that's fine. But it's something like a guy stole all the gold. He kept all the gold to himself, and he was in a cave, and he protected his gold nonstop. And eventually he turned into a dragon or something like that. But so for example, the way I would interpret it underneath a metaphorical truth and underneath a scientific framework, and like obviously we're going to try to psychoanalyze the text, obviously, or something like that, to garner some meta truth. But so it would be something like the cookie cutter new atheist would come along and say something like, well, look at these fucking morons. Look at this. Look at JonJon's such a fucking idiot for thinking this is valuable at all. Like, that's what Tom's going to do. That's what all these cookie cutter atheists are going to do, like Michael. They're going to, oh, it's not meaningful. But underneath, like, if you're into psychology and you want to know the psychology of the people at the time, we would interpret it this way. We would say something like, like, for example, he didn't actually turn into a dragon, right? I understand all these new atheists would make fun of, oh, he didn't actually turn into a dragon. What the metaphorical truth about that would be something like his soul transformed into a dragon, or like that line that he transformed into a dragon would literally just be some kind of metaphor for a transformation of mind. Right? For example, he went into a dark place, so he transformed into a dragon, which would be a foul creature, right? So I mean, all of these things can be made sense of in an extremely scientific manner. In other words, we're not going off the rails. We're not subscribing to anything supernatural. If anything, we're just trying to extract meta truth or metaphorical truth out of an ancient psyche, right? Like, the religious texts are fascinating to me because, in my opinion, we can learn a lot about human nature because of these things, in the sense that we get a really good interpretation of the psyche at the time. Like, I understand that, like the religious text may not be good for us today because, you know, we have different issues facing humanity today that the religious text just can't address. That's fine. But the real reason why the religious texts are so important right now is because the religious text is, there are a lot of fundamental values, fundamental axiomatic values that are nested in the religious texts that are hard to interpret, but you can extract that information using metatruth or psychoanalyzing the text.
Okay, so
the
let me
reason
just.
why this is important okay, just really quick, 10 seconds. The reason why this is so important right now is because right now, all across societies, we're seeing people go further and further away from fundamental values. They're becoming more and more degenerate, and societies crumble because of that. So that's why it's important, but go ahead.
All right, so I don't want to discuss, I don't want to bring up this last thing you said about societies and why societies are crumbling and that they're crumbling, because I want to try to bring the conversation back to this claim you made that I'm religious. And so here's what I want to say. I could agree with everything you've said. And I'm still not religious.
Okay, so Helena,
so how
you
is
are
that
religious.
wrong?
Okay, good. I'm glad you got us back on track here because I have ADHD and I just ramble and I'm
Yeah, well, it's okay. I mean,
so you are religious because you act out a certain logos. Do you know what I mean by logos?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm saying something like, Helena, you like whenever it comes to linguistics and things like that, I don't believe we have free will.
All right,
so
JonJon, I understand. Let me cut you off for a second. Okay, let me cut you off for a second to propose this. Okay, you're saying I act out the truths that you can find in story after story after story. And
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay,
we don't have to talk about the Bible. That has nothing to do with the Bible. Like for example,
I didn't say Bible.
Like, I'm considering you religious regardless of any religious text. Like I'm
yeah,
not
I
correlating.
didn't say Bible either. I didn't say Bible either. I just want to propose the following. I think that you've got it backwards. I don't think that these stories impacted us. Well, obviously it's bidirectional, right?
I think the issue is we're going to have to go right back to what we mean by dogmatism. I don't think we really came to the meeting of the minds on what we mean.
Okay.
Whenever we say dogmatic, because whenever I claim somebody's religious, it's like the religion part and the religious part is something like a culture. I can't, for lack of a better word, it's something like it's who we are. It's this transcendental nature that arises, and emergent properties are something like popular thought processes, right?
Well, I'm saying
example,
that we are this way. We have this culture. We have this this manner and nature about us, and one of the things that grows out of that is mythology. It's not the mythology that caused us to be the way we are. The mythology grew out of us because it is the way we are.
Well, whenever I if we stick to the Wikipedia definition of religion that I'm using, I'm actually, me and you are both are like what we're saying. You said that you agree with me, but the issue is everything that I'm saying falls underneath that definition of religion, so it could be considered religion or religious.
Except
I don't
so in other words, you're not. In other words, Helena, you're not taking issue with the definition of religion. Yeah, but Tasteless really brought up the only thing you could really disagree with here, and is that in that definition it says supernatural, but it's not an issue, and I'll tell you why. It's really simple. If you read that definition, it says something like compares humanity to, and then it gives you 3 options. So in other words, it's not necessary for you to subscribe to metaphysical or supernatural to be religious or religion. And that's a very important thing to point out, because most cookie cutters are just going to say, oh my God, it says supernatural right there. This guy's an idiot. He subscribes to the metaphysics. And that's not true at all. If you look at that definition closely, it's clear as day that it gives you 3 different interpretations of what you compare humanity to or some shit. So it gives you like supernatural, gives you like 3 options. One of them supernatural, the other one is like transcendental, and the other one is like spiritual elements. So spiritual elements and transcendental is what I'm working with, because I can base those concepts underneath a scientific framework like evolutionary biology or evolutionary psychology. I'm not interested in the metaphysics, which is fine, because people a long time ago were. Well, I don't give a fuck. Because, in other words, Helena, my whole goal here is to pick up where Nietzsche left off in terms of correlating science and religion. Like, how do we, you know what I'm saying? Like, Nietzsche thought there was this huge problem with how we interpret science and religion. So I'm just trying to interpret these things better.
If you're going to use a definition wherein every single human being who exists, will exist, or has ever existed is religious, then there's not much use for the word.
That's not true, though. That's not true. Like, for example, if you're brain dead, how could you act out a logos? How could you consider yourself religious if you're brain dead?
Let's change it to every agent. Every agent is religious. You don't have, then, you know, your word is superfluous, right?
Yeah,
you don't
but the
even
issue
need
that
that
I'm
word at
having,
all.
hold on. Well, Helena, this is not your fault. It's not your fault. But your response just now is a response that I've been getting annoyed with, because Michael's been saying the same thing, and I just take it all you're saying is, I don't like your semantics. Whenever I'm sitting here posting Wikipedia definitions, posting the definition to dogmatism, and thoroughly explaining what we mean by this, and you're agreeing with everything I'm saying, and then at the end you just want to say, well, I don't find it interesting, JonJon. I don't like the semantics. I mean, come on.
I didn't say it wasn't
Do better.
interesting. I'm not saying
You
it's
don't want
not.
to be like Michael.
JonJon, I'm not saying it's not interesting, right? But I'm just saying that
not useful. I mean,
it comes down to being trivially true, right? So, why have the word? Like, what's the point of using the word religious now? Just to distinguish agents from brain dead people?
Well, I can give you my opinion. I can give you many, but this is an important one. So, the reason why it would be important to for people like me to reclaim the word religion and religious, because we can, and that's what I'm doing, because I'm actually interpreting religion and religious way more accurately than Christians or all these other religious people do. So with that being said, the reason why it's so important is because something like what the death of God and what Nietzsche was getting at, like right now, people, it's far too easy for atheists to fall into nihilism. It's far too easy for that to happen. So this is a big issue. And it's something like the relationship between science and religion and how we interpret the two. So I believe it's so important for me, as somebody who's obsessed with evolution, evolutionary biology, evolutionary psychology, science. I think it's important for me to reclaim the word religion, so that all these new cookie cutter new atheists will stop trying to demonize the word religion so badly. This is why I claim all these people are getting so upset at me. It's because they've been cultured into that religion is the virus, as Richard Dawkins. So I think this.
You cut out.
Hello? What was the last thing you heard me say?
I heard you say, I understood the idea. You want to reclaim the word religious, because you think that it can help.
At the end of our discussion, hold on, you can hear me now? At the end of our discussion, you said something like, well, it's not useful, John. I agree with everything you're saying, but this is trivially true. It's not really a useful definition. And my response was, well, it is a useful definition, because I need to reclaim the concept of religion back, because I am interpreting it in a much more healthier way in terms of a scientific way, right? And an actual definition I'm not pulling out of my ass. So I need to reclaim, people like me need to reclaim the word religion, and so that people, all these cookie cutter new atheists, will stop demonizing stop demonizing religious people so much. It's insane. Like, for example, like I was making fun of Michael, I've been making fun of Tom and all these cultured new atheists, because they have actually developed an insane bias against religion. In other words, they actually listened to Richard Dawkins whenever Richard said, religion is mind virus. They adopted that shit into their fucking psyche, and now whenever somebody talks about religion and they're not shitting on religion, they get triggered by it, and that's an issue.
How would you feel if Richard Dawkins had said instead, believing in a supernatural being who dictates what is moral and whatever he says cannot be changed is a mind virus?
I actually agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's fine. I mean, if that's the only distinction you want to make.
It's complex and it's really, really aggravating for me because, like I said, whenever it comes to being spiritual or religious, my religion is something like science. I love understanding things. It's just ridiculous, the understanding we have. Like, in other words, we can humble ourselves into the point of spirituality, in my opinion, right? Like, just based off the understanding of the universe and shit that we have. Like, for example, if you're a religious person and you're trying to become an atheist, because a lot of people would consider me an atheist, but I consider myself religious, but I would immediately tell somebody to get into astrophysics and evolutionary biology so they can answer the old questions of where did we come from, how did we get here? And I think that science actually kind of gives us those answers. You know what I mean? Like, astrophysics tells us how the universes are, how galaxies are formed and planets and evolutionary biology kind of tells us how we've. So this is deeply humbling information, right? And information is vital. Information isn't cheap, so to speak. Like, it's important. So I think that's enough to be really spiritual and humble. And then the icing on the cake is being religious in the sense that we understand who we are. Like, we literally understand who we are as a biological makeup. That's the part of the animus in terms of studying religion, in terms of discovering archetypes, transcendental knowledge about ourselves. Like, the reason why I get so frustrated with atheists is because I place validity on all of these things, like archetypes, universal, transcendent nature. And a lot of these people, a lot of these atheists, they don't know anything about these things. They don't care about anything like that. They're just sexism. Religion is mind virus. Instead of actually understanding that whenever it comes to evolutionary psychology, whenever we look at the religious text, glimpse of the psychology of the past, if that makes any sense. And that's deeply fucking intriguing. And it's just insulting that so many atheists, it just goes right over their fucking heads.
All right, so I think that we've reached an agreement. I understand what you mean and what you're trying to do. I think that the atheists, that you'd be happy if they didn't use the word religion, but instead said.
I don't think we're done just yet because you're religious and you disagree.
Well, yeah, I do disagree, but that's just because I think that there's more entailed in saying someone's religious. According to your definition, I don't know. I mean,
well, listen, whenever I say you're religious in virtue of having an entire system of thought in place that you act out. Like, you have an entire moral and ethical system, Helena. That's religious. That's an entire religion in of itself. Like, just to give you an example of what I would consider a religion, right? Like, let's take veganism, right? Veganism is a religion because vegans hold on to fundamental axiomatic assertions about the world. Like, you should be a vegan. Things like that. And then listen, this is where we kind of disagree, but I think in this example, you can see where I'm coming from whenever I invoke the word dogmatic, right? So in the example of vegans being, they are dogmatic in the sense that they always want to make everybody else around them religious. So they are acting out fundamental axiomatic views. And this turns into a risk. People are banding together, right? Vegans are banding together and forming what I would like to call a religion, because they all have fundamental axiomatic assertions about the natural world, and they're acting them out by being militant vegans and telling everyone else they have to change. Now tell me, how is this any different than Islam? Or how is this any different from all these other religions doing exactly the same thing? Just different fundamental axiomatic assertions about the world.
So I think that, let me ask you this. Would you agree that if I said I'm anti-supernatural, that you would have no problems with that?
What'd you say? What was that?
If atheists started saying that we are anti-supernatural or non-supernatural, that would be okay with you, right?
If atheists said that they don't believe in supernatural?
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be okay with me.
But earlier, you agreed that it's a mind virus to believe in a supernatural being with unchanging morality imposed upon humanity from on high.
Well, I can explain what my issue with defining supernatural is, but I don't think that as an atheist, I don't feel like anyone is warranted to define what is supernatural. Like, for example, Helena, we could use a cookie cutter definition like, what is supernatural is something that is not a part of the natural world. Would you agree that's what supernatural is, if we had to agree on a definition?
Well, it's some sort of above the natural.
My headphones popped out. What'd you say?
It's some sort of above the natural, right? But supernatural, a supernatural being, a god, right, would be a being with a mind.
No, listen. We just need to agree on what we mean by supernatural. So wouldn't you agree?
You're
making
cutting
supernatural
out.
claims that what? Am I cutting out now?
Yeah, you're cutting out.
Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, so we have to agree on what we mean by supernatural. All right. Yeah, so I would say that supernatural is that which is not a part of the natural world. Would you agree with that definition?
I mean, I wouldn't oppose it necessarily. It doesn't distinguish between supernatural and non-natural.
Well, this isn't relevant. This isn't really relevant to the conversation. But wouldn't you agree with me at least that a majority of atheists use supernatural like that?
Oh, yes, probably yes.
Okay,
I think.
Okay, good. But that's irrelevant. But go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to, bring the conversation to a close. And Tom was asking in the chat, if we're not going to use the word religious because you want to preserve. Oh wait, let me finish. Because you want to preserve a way to sort of stave off nihilism, and you think that sort of redefining religion so that the spiritual can be included within atheism, I suppose, is a better way to think of the word religion and religious. Well, then we need a different phrase then for when we want to talk about. I don't believe in a God, capital G.
False, Helena. That's ridiculous, and I'll explain why. It's because we don't have to do that. All we have to do is acknowledge there's Christians, there's Catholics, there's Muslims. These people identify themselves. All I'm saying is that Christianity is a religion, but so is veganism. So is the leftist libtards, like the leftist SJW movement. The SJW movement is a fucking religion. Period. These people operate off of fundamental axiomatic views about morality and what should and shouldn't be done. And they act it out, and some would say it in violent ways.
Well, but that's fine. So is, you can describe anybody and they're going to be religious on your view, right? So it doesn't matter that you're picking a couple of examples.
Right. But just for the record, right? Just for the record here, you agreed with everything I said except for the utility of my definition. Just want to make that clear.
I'm not saying I agreed. I'm saying that I could agree with everything and it wouldn't make me, it wouldn't capture what I mean when I say I'm not religious. So now I want to know what word could I use that you would accept?
I told you, like if you're talking about a Christian, I mean, you're just trying to say something like this. I don't like your definition of religion because now I can't just I can't just correlate supernatural gods to religion now. I don't like it. Well, that's a personal problem, and understand that my interpretation is more accurate than yours. Who are you to say, who are you or who are Tom, who are all the atheists to say that whenever we talk about religion, that automatically entails supernatural metaphysical assumptions? That is ridiculous.
JonJon, if you want to change a culture, right, and change a culture's view on words, right, if we grant, and I think you probably do, that words have usages, right?
Yes.
You got to realize it's going to take some time. And so it's not really a question of like, who are you, Helena? Right? Because I've got the more conventional definition.
Yeah,
and you're the
I
one
understand
introducing a
linguistics
new
and how we
definition.
place. Well, listen, no, that's false. I'm using a definition that is popular amongst academics. Actually, I got my definition from Wikipedia. Like, you can't pull the whole like everyone else has been trying. And by the way, I'm not mad at you, but I've been getting the same responses from many atheists at this point. So I'm responding to the same thing. So I sound a little aggravated. I'm just responding to the same shit. But,
well, give me a different word to use.
So whenever
you
it comes
you
to
don't even
concept
like me
revision,
saying.
whenever it comes to linguistics, I understand how we place validity in language, right? And it's something like a popularity contest for the most part. But I think that there's an issue here because I feel like the way I'm interpreting religion right now, this is why I tried to bring up how people thought differently in the past. The way I'm interpreting religion right now could have been the original inappropriate way of interpreting religion for a vast majority of our existence. It's just that now we have cookie cutter atheists saying that, oh, he really turned into a dragon. You're a fucking moron. Why would you think he turned into a dragon? Instead of actually understanding that people thought differently back then. We were storytellers, and you have to place validity in mythology and things like that.
Well, again,
but,
you got to remember that
all of these things are deeply religious.
Religion is just an utterance, JonJon.
No, a religion is a set of beliefs that you act out, pretty much.
No, the phonetic sound. Religion. It's just an utterance, JonJon.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Look, JonJon, if you let me finish, let me answer you. Remember that you agreed that that it's not true that atheists think that these stories are literal. We say, what do you mean you really think a donkey talked? And the person will say, yes, I literally believe a donkey talked. That's when we go, come on.
Yeah, I wouldn't take issue with that. I'd actually be right there beside you, shoulder to shoulder, saying you're a fucking idiot, guy. But but to be honest with you, the issue that we're having is that I just got done explaining all of my views, and you have failed to actually disagree with anything I've said. I mean, the closest thing to a disagreement you've had is, well, JonJon, I actually agree with most of what you're saying. And whenever you say most, that entails you disagree with something. And then it just seems like that something is, you're asking me, oh, well, what word should I use, JonJon? And then I'm telling you that instead of just correlating or thinking that there's a direct, like, your issue is that whenever you hear the word religion, you think that it's necessarily entailed that supernatural is invoked or metaphysical claims are invoked. That's wrong, Helena. That's not the case. So that's the issue. So in other words, I'm not doing anything wrong by using this terminology in the way I am, and you're trying to claim that I am doing something wrong because I don't understand the way language is formed or something.
Oh, when did I claim you were doing something wrong?
Well, you're telling me that I'm engaging in. You basically saying that I'm engaging in concept revision, and these kinds of things takes time. But I'm trying to explain to you that actually you atheists are engaging in concept revision because you're trying to correlate supernatural to religion.
Well, okay, that doesn't matter to me one way or the other. It's just that I was objecting to you going, who do you think you are, blah, 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 when I hadn't done anything like accusing.
Oh, okay. So basically, whenever I said that, I'm just saying that as an atheist, not necessarily you, we could take you out of the picture, but as atheists, who are atheists to say that you cannot be religious if you don't subscribe to metaphysical claims about the world? That's insane, Helena.
Or if
and
you
that's
don't,
exactly what you and all the atheists are doing right now. Because
No,
like,
I
oh,
wouldn't.
I have an issue with your definition, JonJon, because
That's
you're
not
not
true,
correlating
JonJon.
God.
I didn't say anything about. I didn't say anything about metaphor. I was talking
whenever you
about.
ask me what
I was
definition you should
talking
be
about
using,
God.
I just take it that, yeah, exactly, God. I just
Yeah,
take it that you want an explanation or you want a definition that encapsulates supernatural.
Yeah, I want.
That's
yes,
whenever
that's
I
right.
told you just.
Because
Well,
when I
yeah,
say
I
I'm an
understand,
atheist,
but
what
it's
I
not-
mean
it's
when
not-
I say I'm an atheist is I do not believe that beings exist that have mind without body, that are present everywhere, that are omniscient and omnibenevolent, and and the three omnis that somehow are outside of the universe looking in. That's what I mean when I say I'm an atheist. I don't mean I don't think that
You're a naturalist.
stories.
Means you're a
Yeah,
naturalist.
I am a naturalist. Yeah.
Yeah, so whenever you say you're an atheist, you mean you're a naturalist.
It depends, right? Because there are different definitions of naturalism. But what I mean when I say I'm an atheist is I don't believe in gods.
Yeah,
That's
but
what I mean.
Okay, I'm going to take it further than that, though. I'm going to say that you're holding on to a thought process that excludes supernatural or metaphysical claims. So, in other words,
no, I disagree with
I'm
that.
just guessing that in your epistemology, you don't really take metaphysical claims into consideration, do you?
I disagree with that. I do think.
So you do take. Can you give me an example of you taking a metaphysical claim into consideration in your epistemology?
Okay, let me think. So let me think of one.
Yeah,
Okay.
take your time. I mean, I'm not trying to get
So,
against you here. That's
for
a difficult
example, well, kinetic energy is an example. The model of the atom is an example. How we can think about the existence of a fourth, to say nothing of fifth, sixth, and seventh, spatial dimension, all of those require metaphor. There's no other way to understand them.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Listen, all of those things don't have to be underneath the framework of supernatural, though, right?
That's right. That's why I disagree against your claim that I think metaphor is false. I don't think metaphor is false. I just think gods are false.
Well, I never said that you think metaphors are false.
Well, you were talking about metaphoric understanding, that I reject metaphoric understanding.
No, I'm saying that you reject the possibility. Hold on, give me a second. I had to cough really quick, but I'm saying something like you reject supernatural, you reject metaphysical claims in your worldview, and this is true. I believe it to be the case.
Oh, metaphysical claims.
I mean, you just said you're a naturalist, right?
What do you mean by
if you're a naturalist? Hold on. If you're a naturalist, then what I'm saying follows from you being a naturalist. Like, for example, if you're a naturalist, you don't believe in supernatural.
Yeah, but I guess I don't know what you mean by metaphysics.
Oh, fuck.
I thought metaphysics was about your personal ontology.
God is a metaphysical claim.
Yeah, because it's a claim about what exists, what being is, right?
Exactly. So I am right. You are taking issue with God. You are taking issue with metaphysical claims. You are excluding the metaphysical aspect from your epistemology. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no. Well, I just have a different definition of metaphysical. I think metaphysical is a branch of philosophy dealing with what is.
Yeah, so in other words,
it's about
your interpretation, metaphysical is natural.
I don't know what you mean.
And you're not saying metaphysical is not a part of the natural world. You're a naturalist, so you can't do that.
I think you're using metaphysical in a way that I'm not understanding.
I think he might be
JonJon thinks that metaphysical means supernatural. It's something outside of the physical.
Yeah, right. That's not what metaphysical. Okay, that's not what I mean.
Like whenever you're using metaphysical, you're saying that it's not a part of the physical world.
Yeah, no, that's not what I mean when I say metaphysical.
Oh, okay, never mind. I had my fault.
That's not what anybody means when they say metaphysical.
So instead of using metaphysical, we could just stick to supernatural. Like, I think we can both agree that supernatural is that which is not a part of the natural world. So my point still stands. That's what I'm taking issue with. You, as a naturalist, can't subscribe to the supernatural claims. And that's what I'm trying to make abundantly clear here.
Supernaturalism. You've said
that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. I need you to acknowledge that this is the case. I need you to acknowledge that you exclude supernatural ideas from your worldview.
Oh, well, I've been acknowledging that all along. I've never not acknowledged that. In fact, I'm trying to find out what word would satisfy you to describe myself in that way.
Right. Well, you brought up the word supernatural. So we had to define supernatural, and now I can tell you my issue with supernatural, right? Because you asked me, do I take issue with supernatural or something like that? And I said, yeah. You said, do you take issue? You asked me a question. Do you take issue with atheists taking issue with supernatural claims and telling people they're idiots if they subscribe to supernatural claims? And I said, yes, I do take issue with atheists doing that, because who are they to? There is no final authority on what supernatural means, and my contention is that consciousness is, we barely understand our consciousness, and our consciousness has its limits. This is trivially true. And our conscious experience is our reality. So that's why we have things like properly basic beliefs, our presuppositions about the world. In other words, in my worldview, we cannot make absolute claims. We can't say anything is 100% to be the case, and virtue
I don't
of our
disagree with
minds
that.
not being perfect.
I agree
So with that being
100%.
said, who are we to define supernatural?
Well,
that's my issue. Like
if
for
you don't
example, we already know that whenever we study the natural world right now, that things get fucking ridiculous in physics. Like physicists are coming out saying everything we think we know could be a lie. Like we could have everything wrong here. Like things like that. So who the fuck are we to define supernatural? So that would be my issue.
Okay.
But I sympathize, obviously.
What word would you? So let me ask it this way then, and this is the last time I'm getting kind of tired. When you agreed that it was a mind virus to believe in this being, right, that knew everything and was all powerful and imposed an unchanging morality onto humanity and blah blah blah, how would you describe that?
I would describe it as a supreme dictatorship, like Christopher Hitchens.
How would you describe the position that you hold? In other words, that you agree that it's a mind virus. What would you call yourself in order to explain to someone quickly that you think all of that is a mind virus?
In my opinion, I would say that it's not a mind virus in my case, because I'm not necessarily subscribed to the idea and concept of group thinking. I'm not actually controlled by some supreme dictator. I'm actually a naturalist who is discovering my own innate nature, and therefore I am adopting the idea of the individual, like Jordan Peterson always talks about. Like this is fundamentally what the Christian Bible tries to get at. It's really all about it's all about the individuals. You got to get away from the group thinking. So I would say that religions are far too caught up in this idea of group thinking. I believe that there is this transcendent nature that we can discover and build a relationship with. Like, for example, I think that God is the animus, right? Like the animus is something like the driving force behind everything. So whenever we talk about astrophysics, whenever we talk about evolutionary biology, whenever we talk about life existing, the animus is giving rise to all of this. So people say God is the creator of all things. People say God is that which you can't understand. All of these interpretations I can adopt in a naturalist framework. And I could just say that the animus is God, for example. Like just to give you another quick example of the animus being God. For example, the Holy Spirit is considered God. And religious people consider like the Holy Spirit that voice on your shoulder telling you right from wrong. So if the Holy Spirit, I'm just trying to give you an example how freakishly similar my interpretations of religion are to religious people, even though I'm a good old naturalist, right? So for example, most religious people would say that is the Holy Spirit telling you right from wrong. I'm obviously going to correlate that to evolutionary biology and natural tendencies and some kind of archetypical structure and say that the Holy Spirit is the animus in process. Right? Instead of calling it God, I'm calling it the animus or the driving force. I mean, but that's irrelevant. That's just my preference. Like, this isn't really interesting, but I was just sharing that idea.
I have a question. I want to sort of step back. We were speaking about metaphysics.
Don't yell, man.
Helena,
sorry.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Future, this isn't over, man, yet. So we're waiting for Helena.
Okay, go on.
Sorry, I'm here. Yeah, I think we're.
Yeah, Helena, we can wrap it up because we've been talking for a while, yeah. But
yeah,
did you enjoy the discussion?
I did enjoy the discussion.
All right, good.
I feel like you explained a lot, but I don't feel like you answered my last question. But
oh, fuck. Oh, shit. You're going to do me like that, Helena. I see how it is.
No.
Oh,
but your larger point, I totally understand where you're coming from. Okay.
Oh, man. That warrants a round 2, by the way.
Oh, well, let's do the round 2 later.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Yeah, Jackson here. I got to take him out. Don't worry. Jack, you there, buddy? Joe Sunseed's in here too. There's 2 heavyweights. I gotta take them out. This is great. This is awesome.
You should
Joe,
talk with
did you
Vic.
hear
I dropped my headphones. What was that? Are you there, Joe?
What were you doing that made you drop
Yo,
your headphones?
Yeah, what up, bud? I was grabbing my drink. But yeah, Joe, I'm ascended as fuck. I'm
JonJon's a
dangerous.
little bit high, so you got to sort of help him keep one train of thought.
That's what he means by ascended as fuck.
Well, I think
Oh,
that
yeah,
the thought
I mean-
probably helps, right?
Well, the issue is that I love these ideas and I have so much to say in so little time, it seems. So you guys are right. You have to kind of have to like reel me in, or else I'll just continue dropping red pills nonstop. Like, fuck it.
You should talk with Vic.
About what?
You're religious, Joe Sunseed. I just want you to know that. Yes.
Huh.
Can you believe
you know that?
Don't worry, Joe. By religious, he just means that you have thoughts.
Yes. No. Wait. Yeah,
By
Joe, you have
religious,
fundamental.
he means agency.
This means you're an agent.
No. Listen, this is unfair. And in my opinion, I think I did well against Helena. Right? I did.
First of all, we were not competing. I don't compete, right?
Bullshit.
What?
Listen and understand.
How dare
if we were
you?
Gonna use language, if we were going to have to use
I don't think there's going to be a round 2, JonJon, if you keep this up.
What JonJon is saying.
Listen.
What JonJon is saying.
I can't wait to hear what JonJon is saying.
What JonJon is saying is that
Can't wait to hear what Jack.
while Helena was reading him a charming bedtime story, he did very well against her.
What the hell, Jack?
Helena, let's just be clear here. To use language
Oh,
these
yes,
morons
let's be
would
clear.
understand.
Okay.
Yes, to use language these idiots would understand. I just came on your face in that discussion.
Oh,
I don't
no.
use language
Helena
myself,
wouldn't mind
but,
that.
That's not true.
Oh, fuck.
You didn't even get hard on
nice
that
eyes.
discussion.
Helena, you got some nice blue eyes, by the way.
Did you know she has? Did you know that she has natural?
You have a charming personality.
JonJon, she has
Oh.
natural.
JonJon, just ignore whatever the hell it is
flirting.
Jack thinks he's saying.
Helena's
She's got a
flirting with
natural
me, Jack.
deep chest.
Jesus, Jack.
Oh, fuck. This is so hot.
What?
Sometimes I used to stare. I used to stare at Helena's profile picture into those blue eyes and masturbate
Wait.
sometimes. I mean,
No, but you need to know,
dirty little secret.
you need to know about what she said about deep throating.
Oh,
Jack,
fuck.
you don't even know what I said.
Yeah, I know what you said.
That's hot.
You misinterpret it all the time.
She said.
Just
she
be
said, well, I
aware
wouldn't
that
say
this
I'm-
is Jack,
she
and
said-
Jack with
this
his
is a direct quote.
hyperbole.
This is a direct quote. She
I
said,
can't wait.
I wouldn't say I'm down with deep.
My body is a temple.
I wouldn't say
Oh,
I'm down with deep throating, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
What she said.
That's true.
She's
Okay.
not down with deep throating.
For once, he
but-
didn't exaggerate.
But it's okay. That which means she'll deep throat.
That which means she'll deep
not
throat.
She's not down with it, but she'll do it.
I think the animus approves, to be honest. Yeah, that's totally hot. Jesus. We gotta cool it down.
Squishy, all this
Back to the
objective
topic
fine.
here.
Get him.
Yeah, I'm dying here.
Squishy,
Derek, have you been
Squishy's
hearing
terrified.
JonJon talk about the animus?
You should see my PMs going on right now.
Squishy's terrified of me because I've wrecked Jack on communism and she's a communist.
When did you do that?
Oh,
He wrecked me by
She's-
asking me to
she's
leave
terrified.
the chat so we can continue talking.
Oh,
do you
Jack,
have a
can we do a
recording of
round
the
two?
wrecking? I'd like to see
Can we
the
do
wrecking.
like a 15-minute round 2 really quick? 5 minutes. Closing
Have to eat
statement.
dinner.
Oh,
Oh, he's running from me, Helena.
oh,
Get him.
Jack. Run, coward, run. Isn't
Oh,
that what you said?
Oh, shit. Is that what he tells Darth?
No,
when he
that's a
walks the
quote.
dog?
That's a Twitter. That's a personal, a private quote, private joke.
But long story short, Helena, me and Jack, we can't come to the meeting of the minds of how archetypes and hierarchy, or not archetypes, but how hierarchies interact with equality of outcome.
Meeting of the minds
we can't agree.
presupposes having a mind.
By the way, Jack, there was a critical consensus last time that you failed to address my concerns.
Well, that was just too obvious.
It just rolls right off them.
Jack, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on? We were in a room with like 40 people. What are your thoughts on there being a critical consensus that you did not address my views and you failed miserably?
I want to see this video that you're
A
talking
consensus of one?
Oh fuck! Helena's gonna watch the video, Jack. It's not good.
I'm very embarrassed about the existence of that video.
I'm sure you.
So
Somebody
just really
posted
quick, I'm just gonna start shitting on Jack. Fuck it.
No, don't do that. Do not.
No,
shit on
I'm
Jack.
saying.
Is that your
I
way
meant
of wrecking communism? Is by
I meant
shitting on
communism.
Jack? Oh, come on. You
JonJon.
can't even speak straight.
Well, I am shitting on
JonJon.
Jack in virtue of shitting on communism. Get right. I mean, you know what time it is.
JonJon thinks that I don't like him, but I'm actually one of his biggest fans.
I think he knows
I mean,
that.
I like you a little bit, Jack. I mean, I thought the doxing thing was a little overboard, but
a little bit.
A little too much. But jeez.
What is it that JonJon did to his dogs? Drop them? I can't remember.
Hit him with golf club.
Fuck.
I think even Darth Dawkins was appalled.
Didn't his dad drown
Hit
a
him in
few
the
too?
the head with a shovel. The real was in the back of the head.
No, it was a fucking golf club. It was a 9-iron or something.
JonJon, why would you do
Terrible.
that?
Why would you even
That's
brag
not as
about
bad
Hit
it?
him in the head.
Not
Oh,
as
that's
bad
right.
as
It was your stepdad that did the shovel business. I remember.
No, it was more like 22 caliber type business, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh God, Michael! Oh.
Just look at
Helena,
how sad that
Let
dog
me see
looks.
what he
Helena,
posted.
are you able to
Oh,
discern?
perfect. That's beautiful.
Helena, are you able to discern that JonJon puts on a special voice
Yeah.
False.
when he comes in here? This
not
is like
true.
not
So
the
what?
way he actually talks.
Oh my God! Some
So
guy
what?
came in. I was
What is
so
it about?
flattered. I was so flattered the other day. Some guy came in. He's like, I'm always flattered because people compliment me. But this guy, he was like, listen, he never knew me. He was like, yo, you sound like Sam Harris, bro. And I was like, oh, I don't really like Sam Harris. Who's
Wait
that
a
guy?
minute. Wait a minute.
But I'm
We
like the
gotta
biggest
stop.
Sam Harris fan.
We gotta stop. You're getting it. So people come in here and compliment you?
Yes, all the time. I have like a fan base. You should see my friends list. Dude, I have like 50 friend requests right now.
Can
Just
somebody
ignore.
can somebody
I can show you.
confirm that JonJon has a bunch of fans?
I could start a cult, Jack.
Who are his fans?
People who agree, just people who agree with me. People who think
Where?
that
In this
I'm not
server?
saying dumb shit.
Who's
See, the issue is
tasteless?
none of you people can ever explain to me
Just
what part of what I'm
tasteless.
saying is dumb. So that what happens is a lot of people get tired of all the arrogant chest pumping whenever you're always wrong. So it's just natural that people
You know, I will say one
like
thing
what I'm
about-
doing here.
I will say one thing about JonJon, which Josh pointed out to me. And I wonder if you'll agree, Helena, that JonJon actually has a kind of like a moral compass in the way that he deals with the people here. Like he does seem to genuinely be outraged by the way people are abusive.
He is quasi-sentient.
Yes, I definitely am genuinely outraged at cookie-cutter new atheists bashing on religion all the time.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
he's
I used to
the
do it.
most-
I went through my
He's
phase.
the
but-
most abusive, though. That wouldn't make any sense.
He was
But,
not abusive
Jack-
when he first came in, though. He was not.
Jack, listen, Jack. I'm actually triggered. I'm low-key triggered that I used to think you were like yes, I used to think he was the smartest person around, Helena. And then he failed to address my concerns in a debate, and I smashed him. I mean, what do I do from here?
Can you say it in your? Can you just humor me and speak in your own voice for like 15 seconds? I want to remember the JonJon that I first encountered. The non-Sam Harris.
I use different mics and shit, so.
Just talk
And
about.
I get high, and whenever I'm not high, I sound different. Obviously.
JonJon, talk about skateboarding.
Yeah, talk about skateboarding, like say dog and stuff like that.
One of my best tricks, I got so many good fucking tricks, but like I can, like for example, I nollie tray flipped, which is a nollie 360 flip into a manual down a ledge.
Jack's familiar with nollies.
That was really cool. I live right next to the skate park at Tampa, which is the most famous skate park in the entire world. When I was like, by the time I was like 13 or 14, I got to meet all the big names in skateboarding. Got to smoke pot with my favorite skateboarder, Jeremy Rogers, at the time. And it all went down really epically. I could tell you guys stories about it. It was insane. Like the culture, the skateboarding scene here in Tampa is second to none. It's fucking amazing, right? So there's like a skate park in every direction where I live here in Tampa in Florida. But yeah, it's fucking great. It's like the best hobby ever.
Helena,
So,
did you know that JonJon is a trauma victim?
Oh fuck.
I'm not joking. Did you know that, Helena?
Oh shit.
JonJon is a trauma victim.
Listen, I thought you had to eat dinner. I'm trying to like wreck you on communism, but you're like, no, I gotta go.
I'm
here.
I'm getting the mail. I'm about to walk upstairs. You can hear me closing the mailbox.
Yeah, I hear you. But so just answer this question while you're going upstairs. Can you give me an example of any society that failed to evolve into hierarchical structures? Can you give me just one example? Because that's your burden of proof, right? For you to disagree with me the way you did in our first discussion, because you appeal to some Lone Star anthropologist who's a fucking idiot. We all know anthropology is corrupt as shit these days. But
where's Joe?
yeah, poor Joe.
Sanseed's muted and deafened.
No.
He's deafened.
Yeah,
I
poor
didn't even
Joe,
get to
poor
hear
Joe.
it this time.
Yeah, but listen to these commies. They're not going to answer me again. I'm telling
Can
you,
you
they're
type that out?
terrified of addressing this archetype issue.
No.
I mean, the hierarchy issue. So, Jack, can you do that?
You think that all? You don't think that societies that you don't
You're
think
not
there
answering
were
my
ever,
question, by the way, but I'll answer your question. Go ahead.
you don't think there were societies that didn't evolve hierarchies?
No.
Why?
Based off everything we know, an abundance of sciences that lead to the idea that human beings have an evolved nature that we act upon. All of this you would agree with. So in other words, human beings naturally fall into hierarchical systems in virtue of an innate nature. This is a critical consensus in fucking science, for Christ's sake, Jack. This is why I was making fun of you for going against the critical or the scientific consensus and just acting like, oh, well, if there's one fucking anthropologist over here, then you might be wrong, JonJon. In my opinion, you're copping out and running away.
JonJon, do you think it's an informative answer to the question, why do you believe X, to say, I believe X based on everything that we know?
I said an innate nature. Do you believe that human beings have an innate nature?
I don't know what it would mean to say that.
Well, do you think that, do you believe in evolution?
Yeah.
All right, so you accept evolutionary biology.
I mean, some of it.
What part of it don't you accept? The part where we evolve into hierarchical structures?
I don't accept adaptationism.
I don't know what that means.
I don't
like
accept
I said,
natural
once again,
selection.
You're failing. Well, that's fine. I don't either. But the issue, Jack, is that you are once again failing to acknowledge hierarchies even exist. This is insane behavior from you. You're being intellectually dishonest. How many times do I have to ask you this question before I get an answer?
I'm surprised you don't accept natural selection, JonJon.
I don't accept natural selection because of the entailments in terms of morality. It's ridiculous.
What is this? What is he talking about?
Like, for example, some people believe that concepts of truth should be nested in natural selection or Darwinian theory. But I think we should necessarily be using two different forms of truth, or we shouldn't necessarily. Like, I think we run into philosophical issues, is all I'm saying, morally speaking. If you're going to say that, if you're going to correlate truth to natural selection, then a lot of people try to argue that, like, for example, if all the poor people or all these people are dying off, that's just natural selection. That's fine. We'll just let natural selection take care of them.
Realize humans ended that.
You'd be surprised how many people... Yeah, but Jack, once again, you failed, man. Once again, I apologize for having to make you look like this. But
I didn't
maybe we could do it
actually
again sometime.
I didn't understand what you just said, though.
I'm telling you that you fail to even acknowledge archetypes.
No, before that,
hierarchies exist. I mean,
this thing about why you reject natural selection, I'm very surprised.
Oh no, I agree with natural selection, Jack. Right? But I just don't. I don't think that. I'm just saying that I don't agree with somebody if they was to come in here right now and make moral arguments with the with natural selection at the foundation of their epistemology here. Like it's like the naturalistic fallacy, right? What is natural is not good. That's the view I hold.
I thought
right?
Sam Harris denied that there was a naturalistic fallacy. Am I wrong about that?
I'm not sure. I'm sure he thinks it's wrong whenever it's invoked in certain scenarios. Yeah, but listen, Jack. I'm even more triggered now. You failed to address me on communism, but that's fine. We'll just move on.
Are you gonna beat up some dogs now that you're triggered?
I'm actually looking at my 9-iron as we speak. Oh, that reminds me. One of my little beagles are having puppies. She looks so healthy, dude. You should see her. She's great. She's fat. A young, healthy little beagle gonna have puppies. What?
You know, Helena has a PhD in psychology, JonJon, so you might be able to talk to her about your trauma.
That's not true.
What do you mean it's not true? What do you mean?
That's false.
What's false?
That's false.
That she has a PhD in psychology? She's a professional psychologist. What are you talking about? It's not false.
It's not false.
She's a professional
JonJon doesn't believe that JonJon doesn't believe Alex Malpass has a PhD or that Rinsler goes to Oxford.
Why doesn't he believe Alex Malpass has a PhD?
Just skeptical, man. But I think that
he said he doesn't believe that Joe has a master's.
Yeah.
Really? You don't think he teaches? You don't think he teaches college
you gotta
for a
take
living?
Jack, you got to take into consideration these idiots used to think you had a PhD in philosophy.
I never pretended to have one.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know. I'm just letting you know. That's why I'm skeptical.
I've known Jack longer than Envy here, and I couldn't get a PhD in anything.
Yeah, but Helena, I consider myself to be one of the highest people.
Degree.
I consider myself to be one of the highest people in emotional intelligence, if you believe in that kind of thing. Like, I feel like I can read people better than anyone. I've predicted human behavior better. There are endless examples of me predicting how conversations are going to go, how people are going to act.
Talk to her about your trauma.
Are you really good at picking up chicks?
Do what?
Are you good at picking up chicks?
Yeah, I can get girls to like me really easily.
That's pretty cool.
Got good game, blood. See, it's not hard, and I look really attractive. So I'm like the full package. I don't have a job, so that's an issue.
That and the skateboarding and eating chicken nuggets and constantly being stoned. I'm sure that has something to do with it.
Yeah, Michael's an idiot. He spent his life popping steroids and trying to be a bodybuilder. I'm going to spend my life skateboarding in this incredible skateboarding scene here in Tampa. This guy's just a...
But JonJon, why aren't you getting laid?
Because I don't go around women enough.
That's not really informative.
That's a tautology.
Like in other words, Jack, if I hung out with girls, it's easy for me to get girls to like me.
But why don't you hang out? Why don't you hang out with
girls? Why don't you go out and use your emotional intelligence?
Listen, you guys are not my street. Just to let you know.
JonJon figured out that when you're 16 all you needed was a couple blunt wraps and to go hang out in the shed to get it. But now, when you're 22, the game has changed a little bit, and you usually need like a used Mustang or something and a license and a little bit of money in your pocket. But JonJon,
Or you share pictures on
the whole game has fucking changed and left JonJon behind.
Nah, blood, we out here. I got a car. I just got to get a job, and then I'm good. Like, trust me, in terms of who has the potential to live the happiest life, it's me versus all of you. In terms of at the beginning of my philosophy, I picked up Sam Harris's meditation on mindfulness and shit, and how the most important thing to know in life, if you want to be happy, is living in the moment and shit like that. So yeah, I mean, I am much more awoke than all of you. I have the best worldview too. I'm not going to slip into fucking nihilism when I'm 30 because I'm an atheist. I got it. I got a good worldview.
As he tells him.
But yeah, but Helena, I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed by your credentials because I'm obsessed with psychology. I'm obsessed with human behavior.
You believe her?
Yeah.
Why do you believe her?
If all of you guys, because I remember her saying that she's a therapist or some crazy shit like that. That she actually helps autistic kids. I think
she said it.
I actually, it's a respect thing. I grant Helena more respect than I grant you cookie cutter new atheist. I know.
Helena, do you think that JonJon's obsessed with evolutionary psychology? Do you think it's all ad hoc bullshit?
Oh fuck. Gigi must know the answer to this question already.
When Darth Dawkins was asked how he knew if his cognitive faculties were reliable, he said if they weren't functioning properly, somebody would have told him.
Oh fuck.
That sounds similar to what you said, JonJon, which is that you believed her because you heard her talking about it.
Someone would have told him.
Jack.
He wasn't.
Jack, do you understand that you are my bitch until you address hierarchies? I can't really answer all your questions until you address my concerns. It's only right. It's only fair.
You're using me because you aren't hanging out with real bitches?
Is that are you going to segue into hierarchies from here?
JonJon, do you agree with the project of eliminating class distinctions predicated on material wealth in favor of production for social value?
No.
Why not?
It's garbage. That's garbage.
Well, why is it garbage?
Because of hierarchies.
JonJon, you never heard Joe talk about his master's degree, or heard Alex Malpass talk about his PhD, or heard Rinsler talk about how he's in a master's program? You never heard that?
The issue, Jack, is that first of all, I completely smacked Rinsler around on Islam, right, and Muslims. Like, trust me, I fucking annihilated Rinsler, right? Pointed out how dishonest he was. And then this kid, I red-pilled him just because I got into Sam Harris, right? I basically parroted Sam Harris because Sam Harris posted some statistics and shit, and I subscribed to them, and I had a pretty surface level understanding of the issues going on because I was into Sam Harris. He would talk about them a lot, and it's just clear as day that whenever I was talking about what I've learned from Sam Harris, that Rinsler was just a complete fucking idiot on the left who was failing to acknowledge all the issues that, for example, Rinsler is the type of person who would fail to acknowledge that a lot of the negative killings and shit being done right now are being done in the name of Islam, right? So whenever we try to acknowledge the obvious, like ISIS is literally subscribing to Islam, right? He would say something like, "Oh, this is just some crazy dictator interpretation that has nothing to do with Muslims or Islam." Like, Rinsler is fucking garbage, trust me. I slapped him around so fucking hard. He was ignorant as to what the statistics even were that I was subscribing to. He was awestruck, right? That's how ignorant this guy was. And keep in mind, he's supposed to be in a master's program on this topic, right?
When
just saying, dude.
When Sam Harris,
for example, the statistics he failed to acknowledge were the statistics that show that a majority of Muslims believe in things like killing you if you're gay or killing you if you leave the faith or that, you know, terrible fucking things. And this is like 800, 900 million Muslim, maybe almost a billion.
JonJon got all his statistics from
So-
an unsourced Ben Shapiro video. I just putting that out there.
No, it's,
Yeah,
no,
those
it's not. It's
statistics
from
are
Sam
trash.
Harris.
I've been to
No, it's from Sam Harris.
But when
Yeah, he's right. He's right. There's a Ben Shapiro video. By the way, Ben Shapiro would fucking smash you, Josh, in a debate. All of you faggots. Right?
But wait,
He's
John,
way
John,
more intelligent than all of you.
Oh, not on the economy.
Wait,
So are you fucking crazy? He could run for president, dude, one day.
Wait, John, when Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson disagree, who do you side with?
The person who makes more sense.
And who does that turn out?
Wait, JonJon, before you said they don't disagree on anything.
Hold on, we're segueing. I gotta make fun of Josh because he's a little dick faggot, right? And he's an idiot on Islam. I gotta make fun of Jack for thinking Rinsler is in the fucking master's program. We'll get to this shit, okay? But we can't, you gotta slow it down here. Can't keep segueing so much. Fuck. First, you guys want to pretend to be my shrink, and now you're just segueing all over the fucking place. But, yeah, it's just clear as day. It's just clear as day that these statistics are valid. That it's just clear as day that a majority of Muslims believe like it's not okay to be gay and shit. But these idiots like Josh, Frizzler, and Jack, they want to be skeptical anytime they can correlate it to some SJW virtue, right? So they're only skeptical whenever it's convenient, like fucking dishonest faggots, like these leftist libtards, for example. Like these are the same people who want to say something like Islam is not worse than Christianity. These are those fucking people, right? Whenever we can clearly look at the facts behind the matter and see that there are a tremendous amount of terrorist acts being done in the name of Islam versus how many acts are being done in the name of Christianity, right? So we could say that Islam is worse. But these fucking morons won't even acknowledge something like that. That, oh, no, Christians, you know, there's some scripture verses in the Christian Bible that are so terrible, man. I'm telling you, Christianity is just as bad. It's like, Jesus, what a bunch of worthless fucking interlocutors. Okay, well, we can move on.
Oh, wow. I got a good one. You know how JonJon always says that, like, Christianity is like some ideas and theologies are objectively better than others. So he criticizes like Islam because it's like worse than Christianity. But JonJon also makes the criticism that one ought not criticize a religion and thinking like what they're saying is not metaphorical, right? But that's what he does with Islam.
What's that about, JonJon?
That was a pretty.
How long can John?
Oh, this guy said he was a better skater than me, man. This is big deal. Hold on. It's not gonna fly.
How long can JonJon go at a stretch? Like, how long can he like soapbox?
Oh, I got the most stamina. Don't worry, baby. You see my dick too. It's huge. I think you were the first person I sent it to.
This channel that was 2 hours and 23 minutes. Now it's almost exclusively JonJon.
Hey Jack, you might like this. I've been completely demolishing Shamos on a daily basis, Jack. You might fucking love that.
I doubt it.
Just you realize he's a theist, right?
Yeah, but
You're a theist.
So you realize
religious.
you realize that Shamos makes arguments like Jesus is God, God is Jesus. If you try to argue with him about the existence of God, he'll argue about whether or not Jesus was a man. You're aware that he's that cancerous of an interlocutor, right?
I don't think you could beat him in a debate.
Bullshit. I smack him around all the time. Justin, just ask Justin. Justin would
I
acknowledge it
smack
whenever
him
you come around.
You mean over talk me and say a bunch
Jack,
of
you like
irrelevant
Justin.
stuff.
Like you think Justin's smarter than Shamos too, probably. So just ask Justin, he'll tell you. Like I would call, like for example, like whenever we talk about free will, me and Shamos, he just begs the question all day long and runs away from me. And Justin and Seth and a lot of people acknowledge the shit that I call him out for his fallacious reasoning. For example,
Well, Justin
and
is a really
like I
smart
said,
guy, but you don't understand that stuff, JonJon. You should talk with Jack about
great.
that
If Justin's a really smart guy, then his input should be valid whenever he says, "I'm wrecking you for calling out your fallacious reasoning."
He's not very well read in philosophy, but he's a very quick and intelligent person.
Oh fuck! We might be wrong.
JonJon,
Just say it. Don't beat around the bush.
There's not a single person who thinks that.
Shut your bitch ass up.
There's not a single person who thinks that you can beat Sheamus in debate. Not a single one.
Want to do it right now?
Well, I mean,
That's not true at
tasteless.
all.
It's always tasteless.
I fucking smack Sheamus around. Listen,
don't they
you
do that debate right
guys, you
now?
guys need to be careful. Listen. Josh and Jack both need to keep in mind that they are going to hurt Sheamus, right? They are hurting Sheamus. If I have to expose Sheamus right now, he's gonna lose here. So just stop while you're ahead, guys.
JonJon,
why are you guys being so mean to Sheamus right now?
Do you slap Sheamus around, or do you cock slap him around?
Archetypically and metaphorically, all the above.
Tom, who will win with tasteless versus JonJon?
No, I have a bigger penis than JonJon.
No one would win.
He's got a
Everyone
big
would
dick.
lose.
No, I'm serious. I do have a bigger penis than you. I've just never felt the need to brag about it.
Hey, Tomer.
But I tell you what.
Tomer.
Oh, fuck.
Tomer.
I'll post a picture of it. I'll post a picture of it to Squishy, and she can tell you that I have a bigger cock.
Yeah, Squishy.
I need somebody.
Squishy is a dirty communist. Fuck that.
Well, let's get
Dirty
a girl.
scum.
All right, I'll tell you. Let's get a girl as a neutral party, and I will send a dick pic, and you send a dick pic, and I will, you can make sure that I can confirm. I've got a much.
Godless. JonJon versus Tasteless. Who would win? It would be a stalemate. The only losers would be everyone listening.
Sheamus, I'm gonna need that dick pic for my collection.
Kathleen is up in Raphael. Kathleen is up in Raphael claiming she never lied about the posing nude. Does anybody want to come challenge her on that?
Lied about what?
Yeah, I think that JonJon thing's done. I'll check it out.
Sheamus, you gonna send me that picture for my records?
Yeah, I'll take a picture, but it's like my cock grows like 1.5 inches, like about 15 seconds before I pop. So it's like extremely difficult to get a picture. It's almost impossible. But
This guy is so dishonest. Sheamus is so dishonest. He just acknowledged he has a small penis. So in other words, whenever we look at the picture, we're like, "Wow, Sheamus, that's not big."
No. Look, I've got a 32-ounce Parade bottle here, and my dick is just as tall as a 32-ounce power bottle, and it can't fit inside the mouth of it. So I'm pretty sure I got you beat, bud. Like, straight up. No lie.
It can't fit in the mouth of it? Thank God, Sheamus.
Dawkins, can you tell me where I intentionally misrepresented the words of Christ?
Where he misrepresented the words of Christ?
You're accusing me of lying. What did I say that was a lie?
The whole cam situation. That's where the lie was. I don't know if the lie specifically happened within the debate.
Wait a second. What does me being a cam person have anything to do with me representing the Bible?
Oh, it doesn't. I admitted in the beginning, maybe not explicitly, I should have, I apologize. It had nothing to do with the actual debate. That was my entire point. You guys didn't get to the biblical discussion. I wish you had.
Well, actually, we did get to the biblical discussion, which is why there are two videos titled Tranny Humiliates Darth Dawkins on the Bible. Right? There's a two-part series called Tranny Humiliates Darth Dawkins, part 1 and 2, on the Bible. Now,
I never got to the part.
As to the cam shows,
my bad.
Nothing I said in that entire discussion was untruthful.
So
Nothing.
from the other know from the other discussion that I heard with you and I think it was Declan who was the main person challenging you. You ended up pleading, I forget the Latin phrase, but I remember in the entire discussion you just ended up pleading whatever that Latin phrase was, and then someone had said,
It's more something like they're publicly denouncing a belief they have because they hate God or some shit like that. I think that's usually what they say.
I think it's a lot more than just a public denouncement. I think that's just like some sort of self-delusion, like subconsciously they know it or something like that. I don't know. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. I don't think they're just saying that, they're lying,
Isn't the sin part important in that light?
Well, I mean, Kathleen's in the other room. We can just ask her.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Let me grab her.
Subconscious beliefs are still known. You still know you have them.
Well, I know you probably don't mean no consciously. That's the opposite of what a subconscious must mean some other way.
No, I just mean a belief that you don't have present. You have.
So, Kathleen, when the
like,
precept says that someone is suppressing the truth and unrighteousness, what does that mean exactly?
Oh, this is what Richie was just asking me about. I think I kind of agree with Richie on this actually. Because I think that verse is taken to mean that when we say we're suppressing the truth and unrighteousness, that they're saying that that due to the unrighteousness of the person, that they are suppressing the knowledge of God, they're denying His existence. And Richie said to me, well, in Galatians it says that no man is righteous except for the actions of Christ. So basically, man is never righteous except when God is acting through him. So if God is not acting through you, you are still acting unrighteous. So even in your saved state, you could suppress the truth because you are unrighteous unless God is acting through you at that
But
specific
it is
time.
righteousness because God is acting through you to give you the revelation. Everybody knows in their heart that God exists, and they're just in rebellion of it when they deny it.
Right. But so I think what Richie's point is that because Galatians tells us that even when the Spirit dwells within us, we are unrighteous, and that the righteousness that we do is not ourselves doing something righteous. It is the Spirit doing something righteous, and we are simply the vessel through which the Spirit is acting. But once the Spirit is done with that action, we go back to our unrighteous self. So the only thing that is righteous about us is the fact that the Spirit is dwelling within us. We are still unrighteous. We are still depraved. So we still have the ability to suppress the truth, which would completely contradict the presupper's claim that once you accept God, you no longer suppress the truth.
Some deep stuff.
Who was asking me about unconscious beliefs?
I think the other thing to look at is that the presupper will typically make the claim that you can have no knowledge whatsoever unless you accept God. That you can't even distinguish between what noises and language. But that contradicts we were created in God's image in Genesis, because being created in God's image means we're imbued with certain knowable things. And so even a person who denies God has access to these other things. The denial of God doesn't negate the other knowable things that God instilled in his creation. So access to logic, just because you deny God doesn't mean you lose your access to logic. And if you have access to logic, you can make knowledge claims. So not only is the rejecting the knowledge, the truth, false, but rejecting
it's a big deal,
knowledge
but I
is
think
false.
that that's the face he makes. End of his view. And so I'm sitting over the phone, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, I had to mute it. Putting Alex Jones trying to brainwash us. Please continue.
Oh, well, yeah, so, I mean, you've heard Dawkins say something like, you can't even make knowledge claims if you don't accept God, right? That's always been contrary to what I understand about being created in the image of God. Is that every person on earth is created in the image of God, so every person on earth is imbued with certain abilities that reflect God's created nature. So we all have the ability to be rational, to be able to reason, to be able to tell the difference from what is good and bad and true and false. If you deny God, that doesn't mean you lose the ability to tell the difference between something is good or bad. You may not be able to justify it, but you don't lose the ability to come to that conclusion, which means that you don't lose the ability to have knowledge. So that rejects precept there as well, I think. I don't know what y'all's thoughts on that would be, but that seems to be what I would conclude.
Yeah, I was listening to Darth earlier today, and I was thinking that when he says to someone, like, do you think it's possible that an omnipotent being could make me know something in a way which I couldn't, in which I like couldn't be wrong about it? And I was thinking that that's like a stupid thing to say, because if a God was omnipotent, right, he could also make you know well, I don't want to say the word know, but he can make you think that you knew something in a way you couldn't be wrong, and it actually was false.
Yeah. I mean, I don't believe that God's ever lied to people, but God has influenced people in such a way that they have been deceived.
Yeah, but the human agent is never going to be it's like nonsensical to say that he like gave you this information in a way where you know it to be true. So what could the justification be?
Well, I don't think that can be. I mean, even if we accept that there is an objective reality, we can only perceive that objective reality through our subjective understanding. So, like, for instance, if Darth were to say something about, the rejecting the truth and unrighteousness, and then saying, that I know that I am saved, well, justify that.
Well, Darth, I'm pretty sure he would say, Jack would probably agree with me, that he would say that, well, God can't lie, so that's not possible, right? Just by definition, God can't.
Right. So I'm not saying that God's lying here, though, right? But when so Darth is making the claim that he is in fact saved. He's making an objective claim that he is saved. But how do you justify? How do you prove that? How can you prove that you are saved? I don't think you can, because the only way you can do it is subjectively. You're just basically saying, I know it in my heart, but I can't prove something that I know in my heart to have any kind of objective